I'm not going to lie, my job can be pretty damn grim. I'm a Sentinel, a member of a covert organization that operates in the shadows, keeping the wheels of society turning smoothly. I've been a Sentinel for as long as I can remember, a veteran of countless missions, a silent guardian of the world. I've seen the darkest corners of humanity, the depths to which people can sink when driven by greed or power. I've witnessed acts of betrayal, cruelty, and the kind of violence that would make even the most hardened hearts tremble. My job is to deal with the individuals who threaten that order, the loose cannons, the whistleblowers, those who hold secrets that could shatter the world we know. It's not a job for the faint of heart, but it's one I'm uniquely qualified for. Throughout my career, I've committed acts that would make even the most honorable individuals question their faith in humanity. Yet, amidst these horrors, my unwavering belief in the greater good has never wavered. I understand that order and stability are paramount to preserving our world, even if it means resorting to actions that might seem brutal or unorthodox. It's human nature to run away from things they don't understand, to fear what they can't make sense of. But none of that means they should announce their paranoia to the rest of the world. Children don't deserve that fear. Old people content with their lives that don't need that kind of a startling news. Teenagers, however edgy they might be, need to keep seeing the future is theirs to behold. I'm efficient, ruthless, and unwavering in my dedication to my mission. I don't let emotions cloud my judgment, and I'm always willing to do whatever it takes to protect our world. I've been called many things: a killer, an enforcer, a ghost. Maybe I'm all of those. I live in a world where there are no heroes, no black and white, only shades of grey. I'm neither good nor evil, just a man doing his job. I was sitting in my office, the only light coming from my computer screen, when I heard this familiar buzz. It was the fax machine, and I knew exactly what that meant. It was time for another mission. I got up from my chair, not even hesitating. This was an old ritual for me. The fax machine was like a metronome, marking the rhythm of my covert ops. Each beep was a reminder of the lives I'd taken, the sacrifices made in the name of national or international security. I walked over to the fax machine, its monotonous beeping now a soothing backdrop to my thoughts. The paper slid out, its edges curling slightly. The message was typed in a stark black font, the usual coded language we used. I scanned the words, my eyes narrowing as I deciphered the message. It was simple, direct, and to the point. Sarah Daniels is sick. Keep her in thoughts while she recuperates at home. A shiver runs down my spine, not from fear or hesitation, but from a sense of grim acceptance. Another mission, another life to be extinguished, another piece of the grand chessboard of geopolitical power to be moved into place. I'd heard the name before, whispered in hushed tones within the labyrinthine corridors of my agency. As part of my job as a Sentinel, I kept tabs on everyone in the agency, maintaining a keen eye on their progress, their potential, and any potential threats they might pose. And Sarah Daniels, a brilliant biotechnologist who had joined less than a year ago, was one name that didn't pop up in my reports a lot, which meant the agency considered her as one of their trusted scientists, so consider my surprise when I read her name. I had never met her personally, neither had I known her before. But in her profile, I did read that she had previously done groundbreaking work with bacteria and viruses, making synthetic, targeted viral particles that could attack other infectious organisms. In other words, attacking other bacteria or virus with her engineered viruses. Her brilliance was undeniable. Word of her achievements spread like wildfire throughout the agency when she joined. She was also married, which was a source of disappointment for some of the guys in the agency. The guys were pretty smitten with her, I noticed. They would try to flirt with her in the corridors, crack lame jokes during lunch breaks, and even send her flowers. But Sarah was unfazed by their advances. She'd politely decline their invitations, shut down their cheesy lines with a sharp retort, and send back the flowers untouched. I had heard others complain how lucky her husband was to be married to a woman like that. It was a little weird to me why she would tell them she's married. The truth was, she was married. She was a widow now. Her husband had been sick for a while, and his passing a few months back had left Sarah a single mother, raising her 6-year-old daughter alone. I don't know exactly what her husband had died of, but it wasn't part of my job, so it didn't matter to me. Her work was so secretive, so top secret, that even I was denied access to her files. For the past few weeks, there had been whispers that Sarah hadn't been coming into work. I figured it was just the grief of losing her husband, a reasonable explanation for her absence. But looking at the paper in my hands, I knew it wasn't the reason. She was a threat to the agency. I didn't question it, didn't challenge the order. As a Sentinel, my role was to execute, to eliminate threats, to maintain the delicate balance of power. I didn't need to understand the reasons behind my missions. I just needed to follow orders and carry out my tasks with precision and efficiency. I grabbed my jacket and headed out, the address of Sarah's registered home address burning into my mind. As I drove through the quiet suburbs, the setting sun casting long shadows over the houses, a nagging sense of unease gnawed at me. I knew even before I reached the address that Sarah wouldn't be there. She was smart. Of course, her first move would be to move as far away as she possibly could from her registered address. After all, she was a brilliant woman, and that kind of intelligence often came with a heightened sense of awareness and suspicion. I expected her place to be empty, and I was right. I circled the house, checking for any signs of forced entry. The windows were all locked, and there was no indication that anyone had been inside recently. I retraced my steps to the front door and knocked again, more forcefully this time. I pressed my ears against the door, straining to hear any movement inside. The house was dark and quiet, with no signs of recent activity. I checked the mailbox and saw a stack of unopened mail, confirming my suspicions. Reluctantly, I picked the lock and slipped into the house, the silence pressing in on me like a heavy blanket. The air was thick with the scent of stale laundry and lingering perfume, a testament to Sarah's hasty departure. I moved through the house like a ghost, my presence as light and fleeting as a wisp of smoke. I checked the mail, scanning the addresses and senders, but there was nothing out of the ordinary. The usual bills, the occasional flyer, nothing that could provide a clue to Sarah's whereabouts. I wandered through the living room, pausing to examine the framed photographs that adorned the walls. Most of them were of Sarah, her late husband, and their little girl, a smiling, freckled imp with eyes that sparkled with mischief. But there were a few that caught my eye. Pictures of Sarah with an elderly woman, her grandmother presumably. I plucked one of the photos out of its frame, the glass cool against my fingertips. The old woman's face was etched with wrinkles, but her eyes held a spark of youthful mischief that reminded me of Sarah's daughter. I turned the frame over, my heart pounding with anticipation. On the back, a hastily scrawled message read, "Grandma, happy 67th. Love, Sarah." A faint trace of lipstick stained the paper, a lingering mark of affection. Could Sarah's grandmother be the key to finding her? Sarah was no doubt fiercely protective of her daughter and her family, so there was no way she would implicate her grandmother in this dangerous game. She wasn't an idiot. I scanned the house for hidden compartments or safes. In the bedroom, I found it tucked away in a bookcase. She hadn't even tried to hide it, or maybe she thought she didn't have time to. Maybe it was a trap, and she meant for me to find it. With a satisfying click, the safe sprang open, and inside, I found a trove of information. Sarah's research notes, blueprints for a top-secret project, and a detailed map of a private abandoned lab. She probably worked there in the early days of her career. I didn't have any solid proof that she decided to hide there, but it was a start. The lab wasn't far from where I was. It was roughly an hour drive. The drive to the lab was uneventful, the silence broken only by the hum of my car engine. I parked a safe distance away, ensuring I wouldn't draw attention to my presence. I stepped out of the car, shivering in the cold night air. The fog was thick, obscuring my vision, and I moved cautiously, my senses on high alert. I made my way towards the facility, my footsteps muffled by the thick layer of fallen leaves. As I approached the building, I saw a faint glow emanating from a window on the second floor. I paused, feeling more relaxed that I may have found her. I carefully made my way towards the window, my footsteps light and silent. I peered inside and noticed a young girl was sleeping soundly on a makeshift mattress, a teddy bear clutched tightly in her arms. I recognized her instantly. It was Sarah's daughter, Emily. She looked so peaceful in her sleep, her innocence a stark contrast to the danger that Sarah had put themselves into. I left Emily sleeping and continued my exploration of the building. I moved through the darkened hallways, my senses heightened, my eyes scanning for any sign of movement. Finally, I reached the room where I heard the faint sound of typing. I slowly pushed open the door, taking my gun out of the holster and taking aim as the door swung open. Inside, I saw Sarah, hunched over her computer, her face illuminated by the glow of the screen. She was typing furiously, her fingers flying across the keyboard. I watched her for a moment, mesmerized by her intensity. She was so focused, so determined, her eyes burning with a fierce resolve. I stepped into the room, a creak announcing my entry, and Sarah looked up, startled. For a moment, there was a flicker of fear in her eyes. But then, her expression hardened. "So you're the one who does the agency's dirty work, huh?" Sarah scoffed, unsurprised. "I heard about you. I knew you'd find me. Just not this fast. Stop typing," I ordered. "It was for you." Sarah turned to face me. "What?" I was confused. "I was writing to tell you something. I wanted you to find this. But now that you're here, I might as well tell it to you myself." Sarah pushed a chair in my direction, telling me to sit down. Normally, I wouldn't have batted an eye before pulling the trigger. She was the target, and she was right in front of me. But everything she had said and done since I had found her held me back. I wanted to know what the hell was going on in that brain of hers, or if she was just stalling to live a few more minutes. I sat down on the chair, the gun still pointed at Sarah. She smiled, a hint of sadness in her eyes. She twirled her ring. "Did you know my husband died? Do you know how?" After a few seconds of silence, Sarah spoke again. "I killed them. I killed them all." "What the hell are you talking about?" I asked. Sarah drew in a sharp inhale. "You already know about my work, right? I don't know what you were doing at the agency. I worked on viruses, programmed them to attack other life forms that were threatening to us, using biological solutions to diseases. The government wanted me to continue my work on programmable viruses, but this time they wanted me to program viruses so they would infect humans." "Infect humans? In what way?" Sarah sighed. "Their cognitive functions, to make them more submissive to authority and control their actions." "What? You made something that can turn humans into zombies?" Sarah looked appalled. "That's rich, coming from a guy who kills people. It's not the worst thing I did, and the virus didn't work the first time around." "What happened?" "My husband was among the first sample population for the programmed virus. I didn't know he was in the first phase. Apparently, the government got to him and convinced him that I needed his help. That asshole should have talked to me first. He wanted to surprise me, and he died for it. The programmed virus turned out effective during the first phase. Instead of the controlling effect, the virus ended up killing every single one of the participants in the study. It was too late for me to back out of it by the time I found out about my husband. My superiors threatened my daughter. They wanted the virus fixed. So that's what I did. I worked on it day and night and gave them the fucking virus they so wanted. Small suspected outbreaks around the US a while back. You possibly couldn't have heard of them because it was just one article each. And then it went back to quiet and peaceful. Some people said it was COVID. Others said it was influenza. Some suspected a kind of swine flu. But do you want to take a guess at what it was? The virus had worked. Those populations were the second, third, and fourth phases of the project. The agency was fucking thrilled about it. They were successful in making populations more submissive to them. Imagine the power to control masses at your fingertips. This is what I had given to them. But I also warned them. Warned them about what? I warned them that they needed to keep it strictly under check. Keep an eye out for each and every single viral particle they produced, used, and stored. But they don't listen, do they? They never do. They are arrogant pricks who think they are gods. I fucking told them it would happen, and it did. What the hell are you talking about? You tell me. What happened during the COVID-19 pandemic? Why was it so hard to come up with a vaccine against? Why do you think people still get vaccinated? I felt a gulp in my throat. I had a bad feeling about this. The virus mutated? I muttered. Sarah clapped, dramatically. The virus fucking mutated. How did you figure it out? Because our last population test was in Altheimer, Arkansas. No one probably knew it existed. Following the injection of the virus in the people, they started showing violent symptoms, much different to what we had seen in the lab. The mutated virus had made them more violent, rabid, and full of bloodlust. The virus we developed could only transfer through blood contact. But the mutated version, it was airborne. It didn't need blood connection to spread. So, it was just a matter of time before our team of scientists there ended up becoming victims to our own weapon. How the fuck did people consent to the experiment in Arkansas and God knows what other places you did your trials at? I asked. Sarah looked down at her clasped hands, feeling embarrassed. They didn't consent to being part of the study. They consented to receiving $5,000 for lending their body to science. They weren't told the specifics of the program or the trial. They didn't know what they had signed up for. But you would expect that from our government, wouldn't you? It's fucked up, but it happened. And I was part of all this. I have lost all honor and self-respect. What happens now? I don't know. The virus is going to spread and mutate. It's going to repeat the cycle over and over until it has taken every last one of us on Earth. Doesn't that make what you're trying to do useless? Telling me? Writing it down for the world to see? Not that they will. I asked. Because it's the last thing I can do that's ethically and morally right. I can't change what happened, but I take or took great pride in my work as a scientist. I don't want to leave this world like that. People deserve to know what the government did and what's about to come. They should get time to say their farewells and spend their time like they want. What if we find a way to control the virus? Or program another virus to attack the mutated virus? I questioned. I heard Sarah laugh hysterically. Oh man, you're smart, but dumb. You have no idea how fast the virus mutates. Lord knows how far it has already traveled. Besides, you need someone like me to work on it. A new person coming in to fill my shoes will need a lot of time to start learning what I was doing. Then, come back and work, I offered. But I knew she was already going to refuse. To hell with you and the government. I'm not going back. I know I dug a lot of graves. But I am ready to go into mine. What about your daughter, Emily? Sarah's eyes glistened with unshed tears. She will be taken care of. You are already prepared to die, I mutter. Sarah didn't say anything. I had a job to do, and we both knew it. I pulled the trigger, and the sound didn't echo through the silencer. It was a neat kill. Sarah fell to the ground, her eyes wide with surprise and pain. I stood over her, feeling a strange sense of emptiness. I had done my job, but I felt no satisfaction. I picked up Emily from her mattress in the other room. She was still asleep. I carried her to my car and placed her in the backseat. I took out my phone and scrolled through the database to find relatives of Sarah Daniels. I found a nearby address for Emily's grandmother and decided to head there. I couldn't leave the girl out here alone and find her dead mother. I was heartless, but Emily was not my target. Having dropped off Emily in front of her grandmother's house like an unwanted baby, I drove away into the night. You might wonder why I'm telling you all of this. If everything Sarah revealed before her death is true, the virus has already spread and mutated far past the point of no return. I'm warning you, giving you a heads up. If you're not infected yet, do what you must to survive. It's ironic. I'm usually the one hunting the whistleblowers. But look at me now. I don't regret my choices. But I don't wear my scars as badges of honor either. I was just a man trying to make a difference in a world that doesn't care. Now that I have revealed this to you, there's only one thing left to do. Wait for a Sentinel to find me.